Today we're going to talk about identifying function values, numerical, graphical, and analytical connections. We're going to begin with the most basic of algebra functions that you've encountered over the years, the linear functions. And you can see that I have them written here. This is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And in that case, the slope is m. And the y-intercept is b, but remember the y-intercept is a point, so it's 0, comma b. Now we can write that equation both in slope-intercept form and in function form. You probably recall that instead of writing y, sometimes we can write f of x. That's just a way of naming a function. So this function is f, and the input is x. F of x is just like the output or a y value. So as you look at this, the slope is, instead of m, it's a. And the y-intercept is still a point at 0b. We're going to consider for a moment the linear equation y equals 1/2 x minus 2. And we would like to graph that. This says, using your knowledge from a previous math course, sketch the graph of this linear function on the grid below. I'm going to help you do that. Notice that the y-intercept is -2, so it's at 0, -2, so I'm going to plot that there. And the slope is 1/2. And that's rise over run. So using this, it tells us that we're going to go up 1 from that point, and we're going to go right 2 from that point. Or you could look at this as going down 1 and left 2. So once I get 2 points in there, I'm able to draw the line from my y-intercept up 1, right 1, lands me here. And then I'm simply going to draw my line. And there you have it. We put arrows on the end of the line to indicate that it goes on forever. Next, this is what it should look like. In the line that I drew, do you see how I have the points drawn on here? Next, I want to talk about looking at these values. It says, using your knowledge of finding function values from previous math courses, consider the function notation f of x equals 1/2 x minus 2 and find the following function values. So as I look at this is f of -6. So that means -6 must be x. So I'm going to plug that in and evaluate. This is -3, -2, or -5. I'd like you to figure out the remaining values in this table, and then plot the points that are listed here on the graph above in your guided notes, and state what you notice and draw a conclusion. Press pause on your video feed, and when you're ready to see the answers, press play again. You can even see. Okay, so all these values are listed here. And what you should notice is that they are all these points that they listed are all on the line. They're all on the line. So if g of a equals b, then what ordered pair is on a point on the graph of g of x? A is x, b is y, a comma b. Next, we're going to look at the two functions that are drawn here. F of x is the dashed line, so you can see it here. And g of x is the solid line. And we are going to identify some values just like we did in the last section, except now it's not a line, it's several segments drawn. And we just have to remember which is which. Again, F is the dashed line, G is the solid line. So first, I'd like to figure out what f of negative 1 is. So I'm going to go over to negative 1 on my x-axis right here. F of x is the dashed line up to 6. So f of negative 1 is 6. Then I would like to know what g of 10 is. G of 10, g is the solid line. So I'm going to go over to 10 on my x-axis and find where the y value is of my solid line at 10. So that is negative 1. Now finally, there's a little notation here, and that just stands for that they're creating a new function by subtracting functions. So I am going to write that as f of negative 3 minus g of negative 3. And then we're going to fill in the values for f of negative 3 and g of negative 3, and then evaluate. So now I'd like you to finish this table, press pause on your video feed, and when you're ready for the answers, press play again. Here are the answers that you should have gotten. If one of yours differs from the one that is listed here, go back and double check your answers. Next, we're going to work in a reverse way. Here it says the value of, I'm looking for the value of x such that f of x is negative 6. And you have to remember f is the dashed line. So I'm going to find the y value that corresponds with negative 6 and then look for the x value on the dashed line. So let's see. The y value, negative 6, is here. And the x value of my dashed line is 3. So x is 3. Okay. And then I'm going to do number 11 with you as well. If p of x is equal to 3 times the quantity x minus 4 minus 2x, for what value of x is p of x equal to g of negative 3? So first, we have to figure out what g of negative 3 is. Remember that g is a solid line. So now we're going to locate negative 3 on our x-axis right here. G is the solid line, so g of negative 3 is 2. So now what I would like to know is where p of x, which is equal to 3 times x minus 4 minus 2x, is equal to, oh no, I don't remember what it was. Let's see. G of negative 3, solid line 2. So I want to know where that's 2. Now, we're just going to solve that like any other equation. We'll distribute the 3. We'll combine like terms and add 12 to both sides. Okay, now I'd like you to do the remaining problems on this page. When you're ready for the answers, press play again. Okay, these are the answers that you should have gotten. Double check that you got all the same answers. If you did not, just go back and check your work and ask a neighbor if you need to. Next, we have a function. The equation is displayed here. This is absolute value. And we also have the same function drawn. Now it says we should, from the graph, identify or approximate each of the following function values. If the value of the function does not exist, state that is undefined. So f of 3. Okay, so I'm going to find x is 3 and then go up to find what my y value is on the graph, which is 2. Okay, and the others are done the same way. Now we're going to look at this section. It says use the equation to find f of 3. So now I'm going to plug in. F of 3 is equal to negative 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 2 plus 4. So negative 2 times the absolute value of 1 plus 4, that becomes negative 2 plus 4, or 2. And notice we got the same value. That's not a coincidence. It's just really lucky that that happens to be an exact place that my graph crosses. Now I'd like you to finish this problem, and when you're ready to see the answers again, press play. Here's my work for the remaining part of the problem. You'll notice that I was able to get the exact same value plugging into my function as I was by looking at the graph. Okay, now I would like you to do this one. It's very similar to the last one we did. Press pause on your video feed, and when you're ready for the answer, press play again. Okay, here are my answers. If you did not get one of the same answers as me, go back and double check your work. If you did, that's great. Or ask a neighbor if you are still confused, and then work on the assignment that I have put online for you. Have a great day.